Imagine waking up one morning to discover that your life, as it has unfolded until now, has been nothing more than a series of small, unnoticed choices, none catastrophic, none triumphant, but all quietly conspiring to shape the person staring back at you in the mirror. You brush your teeth, sip your coffee, check your phone, and hurry off to meet the same demands as yesterday. The terrifying paradox is this: you may have already lived half your life without ever truly having lived a day at all. This realization hits most people not in moments of crisis, but in the stillness between obligations, on a long commute, in a quiet room, or staring into the ceiling at 3 a.m. You suddenly ask yourself, is this it? Is this the entirety of what I've been given, the repetition of days without the ecstasy of presence? It is in this unsettling confrontation that the rules for living your best day, your everyday, begin to reveal themselves. For the best day isn't one we stumble into by luck. It is sculpted, chosen, and fiercely defended against the erosion of time and triviality. The first rule is radical in its simplicity: wake up to your own existence. Most of us awaken physically every morning, but only a few awaken psychologically. Awareness is not passive. It is a deliberate act of wrenching yourself from the automatic scripts society, family, and even your own fears have written for you. Consider how quickly hours vanish when you live on autopilot. The mechanical scroll of social media, the hollow nods in conversations, the tasks completed without remembering you've done them. These are not merely harmless routines. They are slow siphons of vitality. To live your best day, you must tear down the veil of numbness and feel the weight and wonder of simply being alive. Yet, here is where the paradox intensifies. Too much awareness can overwhelm. Staring too long into the abyss of existence can paralyze rather than liberate. Thus, the art lies in balance. Not drifting in unconscious repetition, but not drowning in existential despair either. The rule is not to see everything, but to see enough, to notice the miracle in a breath, the gravity in a choice, the fleetingness in every passing hour. And this requires courage. Courage to ask uncomfortable questions, courage to resist easy distractions, courage to face the possibility that much of your life has been lived in avoidance rather than authenticity. As Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Awakening is nothing less than dragging your unseen patterns into the light and reclaiming authorship of your days. Picture yourself walking through a forest at dawn. The path is familiar, but today you decide to notice. The wet earth beneath your shoes, the piercing cry of a bird, the way sunlight shatters into gold through the branches. This act of attention transforms the walk. What was once routine becomes sacred. The day itself hasn't changed, you have. To live your everyday as your best day, you must first learn to wake into it fully. Without this awakening, all other rules are wasted. For no matter how much success, wealth, or recognition you chase, the experience will dissolve into grayness if you are not present enough to witness it. And so the journey begins with this question, which only you can answer with the truth of your own life. Will you wake up today, not just from sleep, but from slumbering through your existence? Once you have awakened to the raw intensity of your existence, a new responsibility emerges. The responsibility of choice. Awareness without action is torment. It exposes the emptiness of habit, but offers no remedy unless you step forward into deliberate decision. To live your best day, every day, is to treat choice not as a trivial flicker of preference but as the very architecture of your destiny. Consider the smallest decision, what you allow your eyes to read first in the morning, whether you stretch your body or slump into lethargy, whether you speak with intention or with noise. These are not minor details. They are brushstrokes on the canvas of your life. Most people hand this brush to others, advertisements, social expectations, peer pressure, until their days no longer look like their own. They wake not to a self-directed life but to a collage of borrowed impulses. The rule here is clear. Make choices as though they matter, because they do. Each day is a battlefield where your attention, your energy, and your time are besieged by forces competing to use them for their own ends. And here lies the unsettling truth. If you do not choose with purpose, your choices will be made for you. But here's the paradox. Choice is liberating, yet it is also exhausting. The modern self is overwhelmed by a flood of options. What to eat, what to wear, what to watch, whom to follow, what to believe. Endless possibility can lead not to freedom but paralysis. How, then, can you exercise the discipline of choice without collapsing under its weight? The answer is found not in choosing everything, but in choosing essentials. To live your best day, you must define what is worth living for. This means drawing boundaries around what truly matters. Health, relationships, creativity, growth, inner peace. Everything else must either serve these pillars or be cast aside. Without this ruthless prioritization, you will bleed your life into 1,000 distractions. Imagine yourself as a sculptor before a block of marble. Every strike of the chisel is a choice, removing what is unnecessary to reveal what is essential. If you hesitate, the marble remains a lump. If you strike carelessly, the form is ruined. Discipline in choice transforms the raw material of life into something extraordinary. And yet, even when clarity of priority is achieved, courage is again required. The choices that matter most often provoke discomfort. Saying no to shallow invitations, choosing silence over noise, choosing a walk under the stars instead of another hour of mindless scrolling. These are acts of rebellion against the gravitational pull of mediocrity. Friedrich Nietzsche captured this courage when he wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. The why directs choice. Without it, we drift. With it, we forge paths where none seem to exist." The irony is that while people claim to desire freedom, they often flee from the burden of choice. It is easier to blame circumstances, luck, or the influence of others than to admit, "I chose this." But the day you claim responsibility for your choices is the day you inherit your full power. Suddenly, even the smallest actions radiate with meaning because they are yours, conscious, deliberate, and aligned with who you intend to become. So ask yourself, what choices are shaping your day right now? Did you choose them, or were they chosen for you? To live your every day as your best day, you must stand in the fire of decision and refuse to let fear or inertia dictate your destiny. This is the second rule, the discipline of choice. Awakening to your existence and mastering the discipline of choice prepare you for the third rule. Inhabit the present moment with unflinching presence. Awareness makes you see life. Choice directs it. But without presence, even the wisest decision dissolves into abstraction, never fully lived. Consider the way most people pass through their hours. They eat while scrolling through headlines, half-tasting the food. They speak with friends while rehearsing what they'll say next, never hearing the words spoken to them. They work while daydreaming of leisure and spend leisure worrying about work. They are not here. They are everywhere and nowhere at once. This fractured existence is not living but scattering. Presence demands the opposite. The radical commitment to immerse yourself in the now, not in fragments but in fullness. When you drink a glass of water, taste it as though you have never tasted water before. When you sit with someone, give them the sacred gift of undivided attention. When you breathe, breathe not as a mechanical act but as communion with life itself. Yet here is the paradox. The present moment is all we have. Past is memory. Future is anticipation. Yet it is the hardest place to remain. The mind rebels. It rushes to rehash old regrets or construct elaborate futures. It resists stillness because stillness exposes us to the rawness of existence. Vulnerability, impermanence, mortality. To be present is to stop running from these truths. And this is not passive acceptance. Presence is not the same as drifting. It is active participation. It is listening so deeply that silence has a texture. It is walking so attentively that every step feels like prayer. It is working with such focus that the distinction between you and your task dissolves. When presence is cultivated, ordinary experiences blaze with extraordinary significance. Think of the child absorbed in play, the musician lost in melody, the craftsman bending over his work. These are glimpses of a universal secret. Joy is not hidden in some distant future, but is available in the texture of each moment, if only you surrender to it. But presence also requires sacrifice. To be fully present, you must sever the addictions that fracture attention. Compulsive checking, endless multitasking, the perpetual craving for distraction. Every time you divide your presence, you diminish your capacity to live your best day. Arthur Schopenhauer warned, "The greatest of follies is to sacrifice health for any other kind of happiness. Presence is the health of the soul. Without it, even pleasure becomes hollow." Ask yourself, when was the last time you gave yourself wholly to a single moment? Not glancing at your phone, not rehearsing the next task, but standing entirely within the now? If you cannot remember, then perhaps you have been living in fragments. And fragmented living is not enough. Cultivating presence is not achieved overnight. It is practiced, failed at, and practiced again. Begin with small rituals. 5 minutes of silent breathing, one meal without distraction, one conversation where you listen more than you speak. These moments, multiplied daily, become anchors, grounding you in the ocean of time. To live every day as your best day is to resist the illusion that life is elsewhere. Life is not waiting at the next promotion, the next vacation, the next year. It is here, now, in the breath you are taking as you hear these words. The third rule is not simply to be alive, it is to be presently alive. Once you awaken, choose deliberately, and inhabit the present with full attention, a deeper hunger emerges. Awareness, choice, and presence give life texture. But without meaning, the texture eventually feels empty. The fourth rule is this: live each day with a sense of meaning that transcends the day itself. Why is this so vital? Because presence alone, while profound, can falter when hardship comes. It is easy to savor the now when the now is gentle. Sunlight on your skin, laughter in a room, a good meal with friends. But what of the days when suffering presses against your chest? When loss guts your spirit? When despair casts its shadow? In such hours, presence without purpose collapses. Only meaning can hold you upright. Meaning is not given. It is forged. Some find it in faith, others in love, others in the work of creation or service. But in all cases, meaning acts as the invisible thread that binds fleeting moments into a coherent story. Without it, days scatter like loose pages. With it, they form a book worth reading. Here lies another paradox. Meaning often arises not from pleasure but from pain. The moments that etch themselves deepest into the soul are rarely the easy ones. Consider the exhaustion of a parent who wakes in the night to soothe a crying child. The act is draining, yet infused with purpose. Or the artist who labors for years over a work no one may ever see, driven by something beyond recognition. Or the individual who suffers injustice yet chooses dignity over bitterness. These are not easy days, but they are meaningful ones. Meaning is also dynamic. What gave your life direction yesterday may not be what sustains you tomorrow. This is not failure. It is evolution. The human spirit demands renewal. If you cling too rigidly to old meanings, you risk living inside a shell that no longer fits. The task is to continually ask, what gives my life weight? What makes my suffering bearable? What, if lost, would leave my existence hollow? Viktor Frankl, who endured the horrors of the concentration camps, wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost anyhow." His insight was not abstract philosophy but survival. Meaning was not an accessory to life, it was the condition of life itself. When all external freedoms were stripped away, those who retained a sense of why endured where others fell into despair. To live your every day as your best day, you must therefore tether each day to your deeper why. This doesn't demand grand heroics. Sometimes meaning is found in the smallest acts. Writing one honest line, offering one sincere kindness, taking one step toward a long-dreamed vision. When repeated daily, these gestures accumulate into a life of profound weight. But beware the counterfeit of meaning, the pursuit of shallow validation. Applause, likes, approval, they mimic purpose but collapse when no one is watching. True meaning requires no audience. It is lived quietly, steadily, in alignment with your values, even when unseen. Ask yourself, as each day begins, what is my why today? Not for tomorrow, not for 10 years from now, but for this very day. What act, if completed, would allow me to end the day with the whisper, this mattered? Meaning transforms suffering into sacrifice, routine into ritual, and fleeting hours into eternity. This is the fourth rule. Without meaning, even the brightest day dims. With it, even the darkest day burns with quiet light. Awakening, choosing with discipline, inhabiting presence, and pursuing meaning. These rules form the skeleton of a life lived at its highest intensity. But bones alone do not make a body. The final rule is this: integrate them into a way of living so seamless that your every day becomes your best day. Not through effort alone, but through embodiment. Many people stumble at this point. They awaken briefly but fall back asleep. They choose wisely for a season, then collapse into distraction. They practice presence when conditions are ideal, but abandon it when life grows chaotic. They discover meaning, but treat it as a distant concept rather than a lived compass. Without integration, the rules remain fragmented, like instruments unplayed. Integration turns them into symphony. Integration begins with rhythm. Life is not transformed through one grand gesture but through repeated practice. Habits are the architecture of embodiment. If you awaken each morning with gratitude, if you consistently choose essentials over noise, if you carve out moments of full presence, if you act daily in service of your meaning, then your days accumulate into a life shaped by excellence. What once required effort becomes natural, like breathing. But integration is not perfection. There will be failures, days when you slip into autopilot, when choices falter, when presence evaporates, when meaning feels remote. Integration accepts this, not with resignation, but with resilience. The aim is not flawless execution, but faithful return. The discipline lies not in never falling, but in refusing to remain fallen. Here lies another paradox. The best day is not the one where everything goes right. The best day is the one where you remain true to yourself despite what goes wrong. Imagine you wake to disappointment, encounter conflict, stumble into fatigue. If in the midst of that you still manage to awaken fully, to make one deliberate choice, to anchor yourself in one moment of presence, to serve one act of meaning, then you have lived your best day. For the best day is not defined by circumstances, but by fidelity to your inner compass. And integration requires humility. To embody these rules is not to elevate yourself above others, but to live more deeply with others. Awakening is not solipsism. It sharpens your capacity to see others clearly. Choice is not selfishness. It clarifies what you can give. Presence is not isolation. It deepens connection. Meaning is not private indulgence. It radiates outward, shaping the world. Integration reveals that living your best day is not only for yourself. It is for those who encounter you. Think of the ripple effect. When you live awake, others awaken. When you choose with clarity, others are emboldened to do the same. When you are fully present, others feel seen. When you live with meaning, others are reminded of their own. One person embodying these rules can shift the atmosphere of an entire room, an entire family, even an entire generation. Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote, "Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself." Integration is the ongoing act of making yourself. Each day a small creation, each choice a brushstroke, each moment a seed. You are not the victim of circumstance, but the author of your existence. And so the circle closes. These rules are not abstract ideals. They are tools for daily living. The invitation is not to wait for the extraordinary, but to craft the extraordinary from the ordinary. The miracle is not hidden in some unreachable horizon. It is here, now, in your capacity to awaken, to choose, to be present, to find meaning, and to integrate all into the fabric of your being. If you do this, not perfectly but faithfully, you will discover that your best day is not rare. It is repeatable. It is not a fleeting peak. It is your everyday, lived with depth, courage, and fire.